but Stephen, what it sounds like what you're basically talking about is just being open-minded. And like, whenever I hear people say like if somebody were to say something degrading about the Grateful Dead, you would just think for a second and say those dudes played for hours every single day for decades. They're definitely doing exactly what they want to do. Same thing's true with the Duke Ellington band, but people get so set in their ways so early, and apparently just looking at your record collection behind you, that's not a problem you have. So I wonder, do you have advice for people about how to retain an open mind as you?
Yes, yes, I have a very good piece of advice. If something sounds bad to you, listen to it.
Haha, okay.
Because whoever did that music thought it sounded good. And maybe you just don't understand. Maybe you don't have to like it all. But the stuff you really don't like, that's what you should check out and see what's there for you, and have an open mind. Like you said, have an open mind. Like, wow, okay, what is this stuff? Like I remember because I had I'm not saying I'm without prejudice. I didn't listen to Stan Kenton for years. I thought, oh, that's corny music, man. And then I started to get into Rosalino and start to get into some of the writers, started to get into Rugolo and stuff. So I said, let me put on some Stan Kenton. And it was so funny. I say name drop, but it's this way life is. So I was giving Jerry Dodgen a ride home. And I said, and Jerry Dodgen, I came from big band trumpet teachers. That's the other thing you have to understand about me. My trumpet teacher, and these were like not just trumpet teachers, these were like life gurus. In San Francisco was John Coppola, who, went on the road at 17 or whatever. And it was like, Charlie Barnett and Woody Herman and Kenton and Billy May. And he was there with Gazzo and Shelly Manne and all Charlie Mariano and the Candolis and blah, blah, blah. And I moved to New York and I'm with Jimmy Maxwell, who had replaced Harry James in Benny Goodman's band and sat next to Cootie Williams and was there the day Charlie Christian showed up with his electric guitar for the first time and would, go out and played in Mildred Bailey's radio band where the trumpet section would be him and Charlie Shavers and Roy Eldridge. And with, so I come from this tradition where that music was really treasured and that was passed on to me, like the beauty of this music. So, but those guys couldn't hear a lot of stuff. I mean, and so, I just think our generation, because we grew up with so much different stuff. I mean, I think, yeah. So So here's I started with Jerry Dodgen. So Jerry Dodgen came, and Jerome Richardson, my trumpet teacher, all grew up together in the Bay Area, and I was good friends with all of them. And giving Jerry Dodgen right home, I thought really excitedly, I said to Jerry, "Wow, man! So I'm listening to Stan Kenton now too." And he goes, "Why?" But everyone's got their opinion, but man, I'm glad I listened to Stan Kenton because I learned a lot. You learn, even though, yeah, it's not necessarily my cup of tea, I learned so much from listening to it. You know what I'm saying? And I know what Dizzy said about him. I know, man, he had quite a reputation. Dizzy did not have good things to say about him, but
Cuban Fire, man. Cuban Fire.
Right. Come on, man. Yeah. And John, I will say, and I'm going to say it, like a lot of those LA people originally from Kenton's band ended up in LA. And that's why when you hear those TV shows from LA in the 50s, that's so much of that is Kenton music, both rhythmically, because it's those, as my trumpet teacher used to say, those figures. He would say he would get on a gig and people say, how can you read this music? And he goes, that's a Ralph Burns charts. I played those figures for 3 years. And, guys used to have figures. Now vernacular is really shared because we're all so educated. We have access to so much. But back then, everyone had their little figures and that's what they would write. If you hired this guy, they'd write those figures. If you hired that guy, they'd write those figures. Now we're also expected to understand all these figures because they're going to say, hey man, can you write something like a bit like this? And you're going to say, oh, those are those figures. So, and I think those figures ended up more in Los Angeles music than New York music, where I think some of the arrangers were a little older in New York and they came from the black bands, and I think there was
also early TV, Perry Mason,
right.
All that early session work, man.
Right.
Elmer Bernstein, Shorty was writing for all that
Shorty
stuff.
was writing for all that stuff.
You know, Milt Bernhardt, Ted Nash, all those guys.
All those guys were
All
on
those
all
bands.
those dates, and they had grown up playing those
Maynard.
feet, Maynard, and
Yeah.
they've been playing those figures, you know, rhythmic. And I talked a little about drums, but I'm a real believer in drums being the most important part of the music. Like rhythm is the most, to me, because that's what the people feel. You know, they feel the vibrations of everything. They feel the harmonic vibrations, and they feel the vibrations that come from the sonic vibrations. But that rhythmic vibration is really, and again, I'm gonna say don't want to embarrass John Beasley, but I only recently started listening to introduced to his big band music, and the thing that blew me away was how much I loved the rhythmic aspect of that music. I was like, man, this guy's got his own rhythmic language. And I think for every writer out there, find your own rhythmic language.